Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's Sarah Haas with the Boss Body Podcast. I appreciate you all being here and tuning in for another week. I want to dive in today with a subject that it hits really close to home for me, and I know it's going to hit close to home to a lot of you out there listening. My guest, Shelly Hughes, is a new mom. Her daughter, right, Shelly?
Um,
A son,
yeah.
so sorry, is a year and a half. And she previously was very successful in corporate America as a brand strategist. And a lot of us kind of get into that hustle and grind, and we are just working our butts off and wearing ourselves down and not feeling great. And Shelly has an inspirational story because she moved through that because she wanted to grab the life that she knew she was meant for and that she wanted. So, all of you out there who are listening, who are working in jobs that you are not enjoying, that is draining your life energy, you want to listen up because Shelly has a very inspirational story to share with us. So, Shelly, thanks so much for being here today.
This is gonna be so much fun. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah. So give us just a little bit of background on, where you were working, what you were doing, and then, just tell us your story.
Yeah. So my background is in the advertising agency realm. Advertising agency, video production, content creation, marketing departments, that whole thing. And but kind of like you said, I felt very emotionally and physically burnt out from that job. And we can go into any detail that you're interested. And left that position. Started my own company because I found a calling that direction.
Hmm.
Found out I was pregnant the same week I launched that company. And, here we are almost 3 years later, and well, I
Yeah.
guess 2.5 years later. And,
And then the
it's really,
pandemic happened, not to mention in the middle of all that.
oh, yeah, the pandemic was already happening. So
Yeah.
it was summer of 2020, more or less. And so it was a really interesting pivot point, right? As all these companies were paralyzed, I was just starting.
Yeah.
So I was told many, many times it was a terrible idea to start a marketing agency in the very beginning of the pandemic because of all this uncertainty.
Hmm.
But to me, there was nothing else that I could have been doing better at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. So going back to, here you are in the corporate world. You're obviously very successful at an early age. You're getting promoted, you're sort of focused on climbing that corporate ladder. And I think, I know when I was, in high school and college, that was my goal. I just
Mhm.
want to get out there. I'm just going to kick ass. I'm going to work my way up and be productive. We just want to be so productive and just accomplished. And so, is that kind of how you felt like at that point? Was what you were working toward and trying to be?
I think a lot of us, men and women,
Hmm.
you know, a lot of times we confuse productivity for being busy.
Hmm.
And I say that because, when you're busy, when you have a lot of things going on, you feel like you're being productive. You feel like you're getting things done. You're checking off this to do this that's a mile long.
Hmm.
The challenge comes when you're busy, busy, busy for 3 years, when you're busy, 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 busy for 5 years. You kind of look back to where you were 5 years ago
Hmm.
and nothing's changed, at least
Hmm.
not significantly. That's a scary epiphany because when we're busy we feel very comfortable, we feel like we're being helpful to whatever someone else's goal
Right.
typically, right?
Uh-huh.
And even if your current situation is uncomfortable. Whether, in my situation, there was a lot of emotional, stress that was going on, and we can talk about a thousand different things, without putting anyone down. But it was even more uncomfortable to think about leaving. It was even more
Mhm.
uncomfortable to think about starting my own business, even though that's where I knew I wanted to go.
Right. And
And
why do you think that was? Because I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling. It's like, oh, I want something different. I'm not feeling happy. I'm feeling very stressed. I'm not getting along with people, or I'm not feeling like I'm making a difference in this job. I feel like I'm busy and, maybe financially doing well, but like for my life, this isn't making me happy. This is actually draining and taking away from me. And so you have that feeling and you have that thought and that desire, but what keeps you stuck there?
I think it was a couple different things. Um, One thing that I see a lot, and I see a lot of what a lot of my colleagues who are still in the corporate world are doing is, and I heard this, I think, from my dad years ago, where a paycheck, corporations pay their employees just enough so they won't leave.
Mhm.
They don't pay them what they probably are valued or should be valued at. They
Yeah.
don't underpay them, or else they're going to leave and get another job.
Uh-huh.
But they'll pay you just enough that it really hurts if you don't get that paycheck every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Some
Mhm.
months, my bank account is huge because I got multiple proposals in or whatever it is. Some months it's definitely lower than what I was making,
Mhm.
as in corporate America.
Yeah, because you
So
had that salary, you had that security,
so
you
secure.
knew exactly what was gonna be coming in,
And
and
granted, prefacing this with, I was married at the time, we had a dual income
but it's
because
still scary. Like, you're probably gonna be starting a family and having you have expenses. You have your mortgage, and you are used to a certain standard of living. And so leaving a job where you're very secure and you can afford everything that you want and need is not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of fear involved.
well, the other thing that I recommend everyone do is, I saved up 6 months of expenses. So every single expense that I had, I put, it took me probably about 2 years, and I put 6 months of expenses in this bank account, and I labeled that bank account "Go start your own business." So this idea has been happening in my head, and even if I didn't have my husband, I still would have done this. And so kind of finances aside, I think the other reason that I felt like I was very scared to start my own business, and kind of going back to that emotional those emotional challenges within my old company, there was a culture there that of, reminding employees all the things they weren't good at,
Mm,
and telling people, and, having a lack of autonomy at that company, and telling people that, you probably you're not very good at this. Maybe you should stick to this.
mhm,
And I think even if it's little comments like that, and this happened all across the company,
mm,
especially the people that were kind of making their way up the ranks. And I think when you are constantly told little comments like that every single day, that you are not enough, that
mhm.
you are not good at what you do. Hey, you brought me this beautiful piece of creative. I'm going to make 15 changes because it wouldn't be the way I did it.
And I think it's interesting that you say, we get these messages that we're not good enough, and that doesn't always come from your job or, people who want to keep you stuck in a work environment. We get those messages all over the place in life, from friends, from enemies, from bosses, from parents, from
From loved
teachers.
ones sometimes.
Yes, and it's not always intentional. But anytime we get some kind of criticism, and not even if it doesn't even have to be outright criticism, it could just be something that we took as, okay, you didn't do that good enough, or you could have done that better, or, and that's a big thing that holds us back from anything in life, taking a chance, because we have that little voice in our head that's saying, oh, I don't know if you can make this successful because you're not perfect, you're not good enough. And that's a thing that keeps us stuck. And that's, I think, a part of why women are staying in jobs where they're not happy, they're not fulfilled, and they don't feel like they're making the difference in the world that they want to make.
It's all about programming. If you keep hearing these little things that, like you said, aren't really wouldn't affect you if they were just one off, but you
Mhm.
hear these little messages every single day,
Mhm.
you are programming yourself
Yeah,
to think that way. And then in
totally.
turn, you will then make decisions. You will reject opportunities
Mhm.
or you won't go out and even search for those opportunities
Because you
to
just don't
get
believe
you
it's possible for
because you don't
you.
believe it's possible. Every day I was sabotaging myself. Every day, 90% of the day, 90% of the decisions I made, I was sabotaging myself because I
Mm.
was programmed from my, environment to think that I wasn't good enough. I couldn't
Yeah.
do this. So why would I sit down and make a business plan? I knew I
Mhm.
wanted to start this business. I knew it was going to happen, but like in the future, right? But I wasn't actually taking any action
Mhm.
to make that a reality. And that's where kind of growth over comfort really came in. And what I practice and preach every single day is, you always have to take inventory of, are you comfortable right now?
Mhm.
Because if you're comfortable, then you are not making moves to the future. And my mission and why I started this company, I inspire business leaders to take action in what inspires them. And that idea of an action is so important because you can have a million great ideas,
Mhm.
but not a million great ideas isn't as good as
As
taking
one
action on a
action.
mediocre idea.
Exactly. Because if you never take action on it, nothing ever happens. And,
And that's the scary part.
I love what you touched on, because we do have these false beliefs. We have these, sometimes they're called shadow beliefs, because you don't even really realize that they're there, but you get these ideas from a young age, from your environment, and from your experiences. And if you don't break that cycle in your mind, if you don't start to realize that you're self-sabotaging, you will continue to perpetuate that cycle. And so how did you break the cycle?
I was forced to. And that's the true answer. I finally got to a point where I saved up my 6 months expenses. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't taking on any clients, but I was doing some photography here and there. So I started an LLC, right?
Mhm.
Um, I started a blog all about marketing and photography and just everything I was doing every day, I was putting into this blog. And my employer saw that blog, which wasn't being hidden, right? Um, saw that I started an LLC.
Mhm.
A few weeks earlier, had an idea of what I was doing and tried to force me to sign a non-compete, which I did not sign. She essentially fired me and said, "Do you know why?" And she essentially said, "We're gonna have to let you go."
Mhm.
And I kind of like perked up. I'm like, "Okay." Like, oh, okay.
It's like when someone
That
breaks
worked.
up with you that you really wanted to break up with anyway, and they did it for you, and you're like, "Oh, yay. Thank you. Thank
It
you."
was I was like, "Oh." I was pleasantly surprised, right?
Yeah.
And my employer was like, not happy that I was pleasantly surprised.
Mhm.
And she said, "Do you know why?" I'm like, "Is it because of my blog?" And she said, "Oh, it's because you're LLC, you're starting this company. This is against the non-compete that I never signed, by the way." And it's one of those things that if I came in and I told her about my experience and what I wanted to do, when would I actually have left? Would it have
Yeah.
been those 6 months, or would I wanted to wait a couple more months?
Yeah.
And it was me being kicked to the curb and me on a as I was on a high driving home that day of
Wow.
how excited I am.
Oh,
I was.
wow. That's great.
And of course, there were a couple mental breakdowns after that that are completely rational, right?
Right, of course.
But I had to. It was a kick in the ass to get my butt into gear, and I was
Mhm.
forced, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say, like, the universe gives you hints and whispers, and that's your intuition. That's those little, like, I'm not happy, I don't really like it here, and you're kind of exploring and you're thinking about it, but you're not taking any action. And the longer you don't take action, the louder the universe is gonna start kind of shouting at you. And then in my case, a couple of different times, the universe has had to, like, get a crowbar and just, like, force me out of my situation because I was just holding on so tight out of fear. And it was out of fear of leaving something that is known and moving into something that is unknown. And I think you really hit the nail on the head when you were talking about the mentality that's in your mentality of what you believe you're actually going to be able to accomplish in life. And I think it starts with just noticing what that voice is saying. What is that inner critic saying you're not good enough at, or you can't do, or, I think a lot of times too for women, we feel like we can't accomplish to the level of what men accomplished because of history. And it isn't true. And we're using history to predict the future. And I think if we start tuning into our feminine intuition, it is guiding us to where we need to be. And we will be successful, but we have to start changing that inner critic's voice and replacing it with the truth and listening to our intuition that's going to guide us forward to the place that we're meant to be.
It's so hard to listen to that. It's so hard. The thing that helped me at the time, which I don't do now, and I should pick it up, but was journaling.
Mm,
Journaling was a way for me to decode the intuition,
yeah.
to decode what I was thinking.
Hmm.
Because again, I was busy, I was working, and to sit down and to just allow yourself to think, not about, this project that you have going on at work, not about your
Hmm.
kid, right? Just to sit down and think of, where am I now? What are my thoughts? What happened today? What did I love about today? What did I not like about today?
Right.
And you start to get patterns with that.
Mm,
I feel like a lot of people, they get out of the habit of writing and
mm,
just write to write, or reading, just read to read,
yeah.
right? And I think I did a lot of that back then when I was starting to make that transition. And
Hmm.
those three things, doing it over and over and over again, you do find your voice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, journaling is like a process of uncovering. Instead of like staying busy all day and staying stressed and staying, doing your chores, doing your work, doing, taking care of your kids, everything, you never have time to think. You don't have time to assess your current situation and make your next move to where you want to be. So you're just a victim. You're a victim of the world swirling around you. And journaling is such a way not only to ground yourself and kind of go within and figure out what you're really thinking, but it leads you through a process. It helps you like process what's going on. And like you said, see these patterns like, oh, this, I keep writing this. This keeps coming up for me. Maybe this is something I need to look into. And I really think journaling helps you take action.
Absolutely. And but journaling is also very intimidating. A lot of times when we're not used to thinking critically that we learned in college and we learned in high school, and thinking critically about ourselves.
Mhm.
It's really hard to look at a blank piece of paper and just say, okay, let's write.
Yeah.
I actually have I use this book called The Intention Journal, and
Oh.
it's by Brandon Turner.
Mhm.
He was the founder of Bigger Pockets, who they're a he's not part of the podcast anymore, but he was part of the Bigger Pockets podcast. Is all about real estate and that kind of thing. And the journal is absolutely brilliant. And I don't write just free writing very much
Mhm.
anymore, but every morning I go into my journal and look at the three big goals I have in the next 90 days. And
Mhm.
90 days is a very magical number when it
Mm.
comes to goal setting. And he actually goes into it a lot. I look at and I say, what is the smallest thing that I can do today to get me 1% closer
Mhm.
to each of my three goals?
Mhm.
And sometimes when if you're very hesitant to just open a book and start reading or start writing,
Mhm.
having a tool like that directly is based off of psychology, it's a game changer.
Well, I love that. I'm gonna have to look into that journal because I'm more of just a free flow writer. But I think, some of us do need something to organize our thoughts. And if we're working toward a specific goal, it's nice to have something. So, just based on our conversation, I just want to kind of recap for everybody that's been listening. If you're stuck in a situation, it doesn't even have to be a job. It can be a marriage, which I was also in that situation. It could be a living arrangement. It could be anything. You're stuck in a situation, your intuition is telling you this is not good, but you have fear and you have trepidation about making a change and leaving something that's secure. So, first of all, notice what your thinking patterns are. What false beliefs have you picked up over the years that make you think you can't do this? And then challenging that voice to, okay, wait, if I can do this, this, and this, I can definitely do this. If I can be successful at this job, I can be successful at another job. If I can be a great mom, I can have a great relationship. Like, look at your successes and look at your strengths instead of listening to that negative voice. And then third, take action. Like, do something like what you're doing with the journal. Do something that helps you move forward, even if it's 1%, even if it's one tiny little step. You don't have to just quit your job tomorrow, you know, but don't just keep thinking about it and not doing anything. You started the blog and the LLC, and that was one tiny step. You hadn't quit anything, you hadn't taken on any clients. You just took one step and that set things into motion. And then everything that was meant to happen, it snowballed eventually. And now look where you are. So I think that's, just your journey and how you did that is going to be really inspirational for a lot of other women who are stuck in situations or feeling like they're stuck. That's the thing. We're not actually stuck. We have
Nope.
the power, but it's scary and it does take some work on our part. So kudos to you and for having such a successful business and being a new mom. And it sounds like you've really up leveled your life.
And that's the thing, wake up every morning and ask yourself how you can get 1% better. If you ask yourself that question every single morning,
Mm-hmm.
have an answer every single morning, and
Yeah.
do that every
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
you're and know where you want to be in 5 years
Right.
or 90 days,
Right.
you'll get there. Sorry if you can hear my dog in the background.
Oh,
He's
no, I
very
love it. I love it. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, Shelly, thank you so much. I loved hearing about your story and I love your energy and I just wish you all the success in the world.
I'm so glad we can connect, and I'm glad that, you know, you are doing what you're doing because we need more messages like this out there.
Mhm.
And thank you for kind of being that catalyst.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Yeah. I love my guests that are empowering other women. You know, we got to be in this together. We got to support each other and lift each other up. And I appreciate what you've done today.
Couldn't agree more.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. And that's all for this episode. And I will see you again next time.